Welcome back to another episode of the Spiritual Teachers Podcast. With me today is my dear brother and friend, Brady Bradshaw. Brady is an senior oceans campaigner at the Center for Biological Diversity. He's a competitive and spiritual freediver. He's got 13 He's a 13-time national record holder and a four-time continental record holder for freediving. And he's deeply connected to the ocean and being a steward for ocean protection. Coming in from Santa Cruz, California. Welcome on, Brady.
Thanks, Peter. It's so good to be with you again and just to share some time and space to discuss and uh, share notes from like what we've learned since last time seen each other. So I appreciate
Yeah,
our friendship.
yeah, man, me too, brother. It's such an honor to have you. And so Brady and I we met for the first time in 2019 at the Climate Realty Project in LA that Al Gore was spearheading, and it was a really powerful uh, conference, I guess you would call it, right?
Yeah, sort of a
And
training conference, like helping people be able to communicate better and take action.
yeah, like take action for the planet. Al Gore had this really long slideshow about all the ways that climate change was affecting the planet. He had all corners of the planet documented when there was volcanoes erupting and earthquakes and all kind of natural disasters related to what was happening on the planet. And it really touched my heart, and ever since I was young I've wanted to help the planet, and this organization at that time was what I was called to go to, and I think a big part of it was to connect with you, and then from there we ended up working in men's work together, with the Sacred Sons, and doing all kinds of different things. So it's been a powerful journey together, man.
Yes, yeah. Oh, there's one thing before we got into this conversation, I wanted to make sure to just state that I am a senior oceans campaigner at the Center for Biological Diversity in a professional capacity, and um, I just want to say I'm here in my personal capacity, and the views that I express are my own views and don't necessarily reflect the views of the Center for Biological Diversity. So, kind of just a little disclaimer there, and I'm really excited to explore all these concepts with you.
Yeah, man. That's important to state for sure. And I think today we'll start by talking about your awakening journey. Then we'll talk about potentially your journey with freediving, and how that connects to your spirituality and your viewpoint on life, ocean preservation, and sovereign men's work. And we'll see where spirit guides us from there, man. So. Yeah, I'd love to hear about your awakening journey, brother.
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. I think every time I hear, it's funny because I've heard other people's awakening journey stories and how they relate to the concept of awakening. And for me, it takes me actually back to my first biology lecture in college when
Mm,
I was learning cell biology. And just like seeing the cell up on the board and having someone describe all the different functions and then get like more and more microscopic with the complexity that exists in an organelle within a cell.
hmm
Organelle is like an organ of a cell.
hmm
And that like that just unfolded this world of harmony. To me, it was witnessing harmony at every biological level. That
mm,
the way that our, something deep within our bodies is functioning reflects the way that we as a organism is functioning And then also there are other levels like the ecological connections between us and other animals and how we exchange and how native cultures have reciprocity with the earth and recognize that we all exist in relation to one another.
Hmm.
And it was like, oh, that's beautiful because that's what I'm learning here in this biology lecture. So in a way, science sort of became a spiritual practice for me because as long as I was in a state of like curiosity about
Hmm.
things,
Hmm.
it's a total spiritual practice to be
Hmm.
like learning about the ways that life is.
Yeah, man, it's the Lion King taught us about the circle of life, right? And how everything's interconnected, and yeah, science is it's a powerful doorway, and so from there, learning about the cell, something sparked, right? From seeing these organelles and the interconnection of it. And so where did that take you from there?
Yeah, thanks. I was interested at the time as a young person being asked from all directions, what are you going to do with your life?
Hmm.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Um, I was like, okay, I think what I want to do is be a veterinarian at SeaWorld because I want to help dolphins and whales because
Oh,
I love
wow.
that's like something that came from when I was really young. I always loved animals, was
Yeah.
fascinated by biodiversity.
I don't know if you
And
know this, but that was actually my original major in college too. I always wanted to be a veterinarian.
oh, wild.
Yeah,
Probably that's so cool. I mean, there's probably a reason we resonate so much on a deep level.
for sure. For sure.
So I was like pursuing that path and I
Hmm.
was working on just I was like, I'm going to SeaWorld. I'm going to work there.
Hmm.
And someone recommended that I watch this documentary that basically exposed SeaWorld for being complicit in the slaughter of dolphins.
Was
And
that Blackfish?
it was called The Cove.
Oh, okay.
And it was a movie created by the person that was the actor in the movie Flipper, who sort of recognized that marine mammals in captivity were not happy.
Hmm.
So, and that wasn't something that like everyone's under the impression that we're in this like loving relationship when it's actually captivity and
Hmm.
slavery for these
Yeah.
animals. So, yeah, that movie rocked me and opened my eyes, and I sort of got jetted into activism. I really felt betrayed
Hmm.
by the dominant paradigm that animals exist for our pleasure.
Right. So before that, SeaWorld was perceived as like this happy place, right? For the dolphins and the whales that they were cared for and that they had a good life. But then this documentary basically exposed that that was the complete opposite of that, right?
Yeah, to me, it just exposed that people at SeaWorld were selecting dolphins from these hunters in Japan, and that they were aware that after that, the rest of the dolphins were slaughtered
Oh, wow.
brutally. And, that to me just turned the whole concept of like partnership that I thought, like as a young person, I thought maybe like somehow I was just blind to the idea that, SeaWorld didn't have the best interest of the animals in mind, and it was just purely for profit, and they couldn't give a damn about the well-being of the species or the individuals that they
Hmm.
were exploiting.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was just like kind of rocketed me into this activism. And shortly after that, I was like, fate had it that I was in Mobile, Alabama, um, with access to a family that had a private plane at the time of the BP oil disaster in the Gulf.
Hmm.
So like not long after
What year
this
was
initial,
that? Do you remember?
it was 2010. I'll always remember.
Hmm.
Um, the BP Deepwater Horizon disaster of 2010 was at the time the worst environmental disaster in the history of the United States.
Hmm.
And it was like the spill happened and we got to fly over and witness the spill. We saw dolphins swimming through oil, just sort of drowning in it, um, and birds trying to fly. And it was just so horrendous. That experience also was something that just kind of snapped me out of this idea that the culture that we're living in was like oriented in the right direction.
Hmm.
I realized that we were just sucking life from the earth and really sucking our own life from the earth, and that our culture was just so misguided in this way.
Well, in a lot of native cultures, they believe that the oil is the blood of the earth,
Mm,
and that the earth is its own organism, just like the cells you mentioned, right? Like the planet is alive, and it's, from what I understand, it's a sixth dimensional being. And so we're in the third dimension, we're transitioning into the fifth dimension, those of us that are waking up, and the earth is on the sixth dimension, and it's a living organism. I think for the first time I realized that was when COVID hit. You could see the whole planet was affected. So the whole planet was sick basically and had like some time to rest, because everything shut down. And that was my first time when I really like felt that the planet was one huge being. Like I always knew it from when I was little, but I actually like felt it. Like, wow, the planet's like sick right now.
yeah. At that time, I remember there's an endangered whale, the North Atlantic right whale, and it's extremely endangered. Like it's what we call critically endangered officially. And
Hmm.
um, they at the time there was a lot less shipping overseas.
Hmm.
There was recorded like right whales sounds were starting to become louder because it's almost like they were able to communicate for the first time.
Wow. Oh man, I'm
Really?
getting chills.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, that's the kind of scale that we have sort of caused destruction to habitats. And I don't mean to depress people. I mean, there's the only antidote to this stuff is taking action. So, there's so many things to do, and there are so many ways to contribute that, like, it's, yeah, I just think that that's the way. And so that is also kind of capping off the question of my spirituality because people ask, like, are activists, they're so angry, they're so sad and angry, like, and immediately when I started doing work, my mom was like, don't become an activist, please. Like, it's gonna ruin your life. And I was like, what? And I felt that really like once knowing the information, what else was there to do but act? And I feel
Mhm.
like that's completes the equation a little bit.
Yeah, and I what we can do is we can drop some links um, of different organizations and different um, resources that people can access to get involved at the bottom. So just shoot those to me afterwards, and because I know from all the people that I know, you're the expert in these kind of things. So um, we can totally share with people if they want to get involved. And I want to give, like, not to fast forward your story, but I want to give people the optimistic side, which is that back in 2000, was it 17, that you helped pass a bill to stop offshore drilling with the Obama administration on the Atlantic, right?
so the Obama administration, the first chapter was basically, yeah, there was a proposal through a federal action to open up the Atlantic coast to offshore drilling, and that was under President Obama in 2000, in I think 2013 and 14 was when this sort of came to a head.
Hmm.
And we defeated that proposal through activism and through people all up and down the East Coast speaking out, going to their city councils, doing a broad campaign to convince the whole power structure that this was not a good idea.
Hmm.
And it worked. So all of these animals were spared from oil and gas drilling, and the first part of that, which is actually blasting these air guns into the ocean to create sound, to create an image of how much oil and gas is under the seafloor.
Hmm.
That was going to be the first step, and it was going to be, I think the US government predicted that there would be 138,500 marine mammal deaths or injuries um,
Wow.
as a result, and we
That
prevented
seems
that.
like a low number.
Well, yeah, I mean, you never know because the environmental impact statements only cover a certain, um, only take into consideration a certain amount of, considerations. Like you can't actually know until it
Right. Right. Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, and that's probably not even including the fish and all the marine life on the seafloor and things like that. I mean, it's probably into the billions, potentially.
Yeah, there were some studies of that seismic air gun um, technology that showed things like, like oyster larvae, like the first phase of oysters, that they would get killed in mass, that there could be mass damage to the inner ears of fish from the sound.
Hmm.
So yeah, we just don't know the impacts because fortunately, it didn't happen. And then, for the next 4 years, President Trump tried to open offshore drilling off of every coastline in the United States, including the Atlantic coast and the entire Pacific coast, Alaska, uh, not Hawaii,
Okay.
but yeah, almost every coastline in the United States. So that was a 4 years of extremely hard work to
Hmm.
prevent that from happening. But we won that too. So
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, so for those people listening, I mean, there is huge hope, and there is ways to make big impact. And you're a great example of that, of just the ways that we can support and help the planet. And that sometimes people just feel like for me, for example, like I wouldn't even know where to start to help with something like that, So I think dropping some of these links and sharing some of that, like where would somebody start? I know you mentioned like going to your councilman, right?
yeah, a friend of mine texted me today about an issue unfolding in LA, about the dumping of waste after the fires, and I immediately wanted to know who's the decision maker. Like, so there's a series of questions to ask yourself, like who's making this decision? Um, what kind of, have we asked them not to yet
Hmm.
directly? What's the most effective way to ask them? And then after you ask nicely, there's a series of tactics that can be done to put pressure on a decision maker. So that's in a nutshell kind of what activism I would kind of sum it up as. But
Hmm.
also there are groups already working on issues and can help, provide resources to people
Hmm.
to help um, people rise up and make sure that we're not uh, yeah that these impacts don't happen and that we can actually make forward progress on some things too.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so you flew over the BP oil spill, and then you started working with activism, right? And where did it evolve from there?
Yeah, so say I did a lot of volunteering for years. I had been in a competitive swimmer in my first year of college, so that was sort of in the back of my mind, like always a thing. And I was, for me to show up in a good way every day, like I have to move my body. So um, being able to get on a bike and I was getting a triathlon for a little while. Um, And then I ended up going to grad school in Australia on the Great Barrier Reef.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, yeah. So I kind of wanted to continue my education and learn more about coral reef ecology because
Hmm.
coral reefs are one of the most, heavily impacted species. Corals are from climate change and fossil fuel combustion.
Hmm.
They're dying out and bleaching at an incredibly fast rate. So I wanted to understand what the impacts of that were on the ocean ecosystem and went to study in Australia. And when I was there on my breaks, I was just like diving off the side of the reef and I would see like a sparkly thing a little bit deeper than I had gone the dive before. And I just kept going and kept finding things deeper. And then someone told me about free diving as a sport. Like there's actually like a competitive sport called free diving.
Okay, and what year was this?
This is 2015. Yeah,
Okay.
2015. So I actually quit grad school
Oh, wow.
because I was just so I was so into it. I just
Hmm.
felt like I felt reborn at that time.
Hmm.
I got so addicted to the feeling of being underwater and
Hmm.
not having bubbles from a scuba tank,
Hmm.
and the amount of peace that came to me when I was just, floating in suspension underwater with the animals that I'm trying to protect.
Hmm.
Um,
That's such a beautiful image and such a beautiful experience, right?
yeah, yeah, it's everything to me. It's become my church,
Hmm.
which then circles back to like the protection aspect. I consider the ocean, all of the ecosystems in the ocean as incredibly sacred. And to me, it's like if I don't have that, I'm not myself.
Yeah. And the question that comes up is like, people talk about different rate like different beings and extraterrestrials and even beings that lived on the planet. And there's so many cultures and so many records of mer people, mermaids, mermen, right? Do you feel like in a past, either in another dimension or in another lifetime, you were a merman or a merwoman?
I feel like I'm doing that now.
Right, right.
Um, this is it. Well, so I love that. I love thinking about whether there's mer people in Atlantis and these ideas. And like, I dream that one day I'll be like taken into Atlantis. Someone will be like, okay, you've been deemed worthy. Now you may enter.
Right, right. All right, you got the world record. Now you're ready.
Yeah.
That would be
Um,
that's awesome. I love that.
yeah. But I think as a thought experiment, it's like, say there isn't, there definitely isn't. It's like, say we we know everything there is to know. Um, Sometimes I think like people who are looking for extraterrestrials and mer people, like like we have this desire to seek a connection to something outside of our planet. And
Hmm.
I often wonder about like, are people just missing a connection to our planet? Like, are we
Right,
seeking something outside of something that we already have?
right, right. And I mean, it sounds like yeah, that's what you're doing. You're putting on the fin behind you is the ones that you use for diving, right?
Yeah, this is one of the fins that I use. And I can pivot to
Oh wow. So
my
that's
actual.
for the listeners just listening, it looks like the fin of a dolphin or a whale. It's you put 2 feet in and then it expands out and is like a wide fin with both feet in it. And then the other ones are just really long fins that how many feet is that? Like 4 feet?
Yeah, well, probably 3 or 4 feet.
3 to 4 feet
So
long. Yeah, so they're very different than the fins that people take to the pool or to the for longboarding or not wakeboarding, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So these
Or
are the what's that?
body surfing and boogie boarding.
Right, boogie boarding. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was what the word I was looking for. And so these are meant to give you more propulsion, but they're slower moving, right? Because they're so long.
Yeah, they're designed the two fins that are separate for each foot are designed to be able to slowly kind of do a slow kick and have it the water sort of roll down the fin and create this wave movement,
Hmm.
which is a really cool thing to feel when swimming and sort of get into a rhythm. And one of the beautiful things about using either one of these fins is that it allows me to get into a rhythm with my body and
Hmm.
close my eyes, kind of go internal, and yeah, kind of get into a sort of a trance while holding my breath. So the sport of freediving is a very internal sport. Some people say that you go scuba diving to look around and you go freediving to look within.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, and I think it's probably one of the lesser known sports in the world, right? Do they compete in it in the Olympics?
It's been proposed, I think, to the Olympics to be a sport. And they're sort of evaluating whether it's going to be in the Olympics. And it's currently going to be in the World Games this year, which is sort of a precursor to being
Okay.
featured in. So it
Okay,
might be in
so
the Olympics 2028 or 2032, but we're not sure yet.
okay. So are you training for the World Games?
No, they only selected the top 8 athletes in the world, and I didn't make that cut this
Okay.
time around.
Okay.
Um, so there's actually, yeah, there are actually only 8 men and 8 women going this year.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
if it goes to the Olympics, there'll probably be a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. I'm looking forward to the day that it is part of the Olympics.
Yeah, me too,
So
of course.
so I think about the people in and around the Pacific, like around Australia, the islands all around there. A lot of the cultures there, a lot of the a lot of them just like live in houses on the water. So they're so intertwined with the ocean, and they're just free diving from the time they're basically tiny little humans, and those people most likely, do you know anything about like how long those I've seen articles about those people. I think they hold their breath for what, about 4 minutes or more, I think.
That sounds right. That was what I would think
Mhm.
for somebody who lives in a culture where you're born and raised, and also you're inheriting genes from people that have been doing it consistently through their entire life um, history. And I've heard stories that people who are there can also open their eyes underwater and see very clearly, like that their
Mm.
eyes are more adapted to be
Hmm.
underwater than people who aren't. And also, another genetic adaptation that people have there is the spleen is enlarged, which
Interesting.
is an organ that helps create more hemoglobin in the blood. And hemoglobin is a molecule that carries oxygen to tissues.
Hmm.
So people seem to be adapted as aquatic humans, which I think is a part of this whole thing, which is that have the ability to be a lot more, we have the ability in our bodies to be a lot more interconnected with the ocean than we're living right now.
That's fascinating. That's so fascinating. And uh, have you ever tested your hemoglobin?
I did a blood test a few years ago, but yeah, I need to do that more. It's something that I kind of have on my list.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So with your largest well, like your best record, right? What was the longest time that you went without breathing underwater?
So there's a couple different disciplines. I specialize in distance underwater in a pool, going back and forth.
Okay.
Those dives have taken me roughly 3 to 4 minutes
Okay.
while moving at a pretty good pace.
Hmm.
But my best breath hold is 8 minutes and 10 seconds without
Wow.
moving.
Without moving.
And the world record is around 10:30. Um,
Okay.
there's someone that did 11 plus, but I'm not sure about the uh, authenticity of that attempt.
Okay.
So
Okay.
I think to me
So,
the world record's like 10:30.
okay, so you're 2 minutes under the world record, basically.
2 minutes, 20 seconds.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fascinating. I had one experience that comes to mind that I wanted to share with you, where I was in a pool in San Diego, and there was a pool in the complex I was living in when I first moved to San Diego, and I'm underwater, and I went into theta state, like I went into that meditative state, and it felt like I could just be there for like it felt like I didn't have to breathe. It was the most unique feeling I've had, and I maybe had it once or twice since then. Do you know what I'm have you ever experienced that?
Yes. Yeah. So I don't know what exactly happens in the body in that first phase of a breath hold. Um, but it's beautiful. I mean, I think I've done so many of them, and it's great that you got to experience that because I think someone like you who's committed to and devoted to like presence,
Hmm.
just being present and not having all the thoughts like how long am I holding my breath, checking the watch every 10 seconds.
Hmm.
You get to experience all like this state. I think theta state is from what I understand when we hold our breath and this is like very concrete that when we hold our breath our heart rate drops. And the way that I understand it is during the circulation, while blood is circulating from the heart to the brain and back, um, if the heart rate slows down, the brain processing the oxygen in the blood from the heart at that rate will induce a theta state and it will
Mm,
induce meditation.
wow.
So you can it without even mastering meditation just by getting into the physical experience of a breath hold.
Yeah, yeah, man. It was really profound. I really am one of those people that like to see what's possible as a human, as well as I believe you are, right? So, um, that experience just gave me that feeling of that limitlessness, right? Like if I didn't think about it, if my brain didn't tell me, okay, let's go take a breath, I don't, I'm not sure how long I could have stayed down there, you know? But yeah, that was really interesting. And that makes me think about float tanks too, where, you go into a float tank, which have you ever done that before?
Yeah, I did once.
For me, I've only done it once as well, and it was profound because what for people that haven't experienced it, basically there's a very high level of salt in the water, and you get put into this pod that is completely pitch black. And so you don't need to exert any effort to float on the top of the water. You're just there, like in the water, like in an embryo, in like a universal embryo, right? And it's so powerful because it feels like that experience gives the soul an experience of what it would be like to not be in the body, right? Because the body is able to fully relax. And then I had some unwinding happening where my body was adjusting and realigning. And then from there, my third eye really opened up and I was able to, astral travel or um, go into these deeper states of meditation. And it was really profound.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I think it reminds me, yes, that this is also very similar to the experience of free diving. Um, if if you're able to uh, really relax in underwater, which is
Hmm.
the whole kind of the whole secret and the whole um, key to a positive, free diving experience. One I feel compelled, but I should say that, people who are trying breath holding in the water, um, anywhere listening, it's actually incredibly important to like get certified. And if you don't want to get certified, that's okay. But to have a buddy around who can be there in case you black out,
Hmm.
especially for people that are practicing hyperventilation or any kind of Wim Hof breathing type styles, because that actually amplifies the level of danger quite a lot if you're doing any kind of breathing before a breath hold. Um, and I can explain the whole physiology behind that and everything, but you'll learn it in a free diving course.
Hmm.
Or, there's a great online resource for people too that I can share with you for the notes. It's just called freedivingsafety.com.
Okay. Okay.
But yeah, first and foremost is doing it safe so we can continue to, expand this beautiful practice and share it with people, and people can deepen into it over time and have a whole lifetime of positive experience. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And so
yeah.
thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really important disclaimer for people. And also when 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 you've been freediving for all these years, uh, do you feel like it's deepened your meditative practice?
Yes, I mean it is a meditative practice. I think if anything, it might have made it a little harder for me to meditate outside of the water.
Right, right, because it's so easy
Um,
to drop in probably for you now in the water, right?
Yeah, but I feel like maybe other people can. I don't know if you resonate with this idea, but the meditation practice is always changing and a little bit, and the challenges are sort of shifting in terms
Hmm.
of like finding that state.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, I also don't practice meditation that often, so I think I'm constantly trying to shake off the rust.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um,
I feel like they kind of go hand in hand, you know, and it makes me think about um, what the Tibetan monks do. Is they hold, I mean, in some of the practices, the Tibetan monks will hold the other man or woman's ankles, and they will oscillate them for about 5 minutes in the morning to start the chi aligning, the spine aligning, and the chi flowing in a very cohesive way throughout the body through the meridians. And there's actually a machine called the Chi machine that the Japanese perfected, where you put your ankles onto this oscillating machine. You lay down on a mat or on the ground, and it's about, I'd say, like 12 inches off the ground, and you're oscillating at a very specific pace. And what happens after about 10 to 20 minutes is when the machine stops, there's this wave of chi that flows through the body. And it made me think about that wave-like motion you were describing when you're underwater with the large fins, and how your spine is aligning, the chi is like flowing and opening through you. Uh, yeah, I think there's something really beautiful happening there.
Yeah, it's making me think about the way the cadence of movement and how when I'm really trying to achieve a good result from my dive, this is the whole thing about it being competitive, but also about awareness.
Hmm.
And so it's not the kind of sport where you go in and you just beat your chest and say, "Oh, I'm gonna do this."
Right.
It's it's like all about awareness and focus and presence the whole time. And so I'm like, 2 minutes into a dive and I start having very strong urge to breathe. And then I bring my mind back to the feeling of the water moving over my body and how clearly I feel like I'm cutting through the leading edges of my fingers. They're slicing through the water as my fin behind me is achieving this perfect wave of movement that kind of, continues the last kick motion, and can continue this effortless as much as possible, reducing the effort and the output. Um, so the whole experience altogether is sort of like becoming, letting the water teach me how to focus, if that makes sense. It's being immersed in this substance, and so I'm sort of always sort of attuning to the resonance of the water, because it's my goal is not to overpower it, but uh, to allow it to propel me forward. And so that's, I think, the whole kind of Bruce Lee thing. Be like water, my friend. You know?
Yeah, yeah, it sounds like you're almost like becoming one with it.
Yeah, that's really the goal. I mean, there's so much water in our bodies. We're mostly water.
Hmm.
To, to give thanks, I think also as part of this whole practice, it's like give thanks. I mean, we evolved to be this being in this, this space. And like I think it feels quite natural to get back in the water. Like you mentioned, it's like going back to the embryo
Hmm.
at times.
Hmm.
And so I think there's an inherent need for us to be immersed at times in water.
Yeah.
And yeah, it could go in all sorts of directions because there's this whole beautiful thing about grounding in the ions of the sea and how the body can, discharge energy in water. There's just so many good things to talk about here.
Well, yeah, it makes me think about something I heard actually on a podcast with Theo Vaughn and Cat Williams this week, where Cat Williams said that if you're in water, negative energy can't touch you. Like
Mm.
it can't penetrate through water. And that was really interesting to hear. It really resonated because, people will take these, many cultures will prescribe as medicine uh, what are called baños, or like herbal baths, where you have a blend of different herbs, and uh, you pour them into the bath, and then you submerge yourself into it, and then those herbs help to open you up and to clear any energy in your body. And yeah, it's something that I'm really, because I feel amazing after I go in the ocean, or I've been huge, like I've been swimming was I loved swimming my whole life. And I was a swim instructor for 5 years for kids, and at Rutgers University actually. So yeah, man, I really resonate with the
Gosh,
water.
did we talk about that?
I don't think we've ever talked about
Love
that.
teaching kids swimming. It's like the best.
Yeah, yeah, man. Working with the kids is, yeah, they pick it up so fast, you know, and it's so natural, and it's just as soon as you teach them as soon as I was able to teach them how to float, then the rest is just refining the techniques, you know? So yeah, I think
Yeah.
going back to the idea of like water being this almost like buffer protecting us and and helping us, people will you can clear your energy. There's so many ways to clear energy from the day, but going in the shower with an intention to use the water to wash off any energy you may have picked up, I feel a huge difference even just with that.
Ah, he here it is. Here's the connection to the feminine we were talking about before the call.
Yep.
Is okay, so here's a thought is I actually feel like it's more accurate the word that you use buffer. I feel like it's more accurate to use the word buffer for water because as opposed to like an idea of which it's no bad energy can touch you when you're in the water
Hmm.
because I think we also have a responsibility and at a certain point water becomes poisoned and
Hmm.
it does buffer us. Like for the greatest example is that burning fossil fuels has caused the atmosphere to warm massively, but we don't experience that because it's actually all getting absorbed in the ocean. And so
Hmm.
the oceans are warming.
Hmm.
But at a certain point, the oceans can't take the heat
Right.
for us.
Right.
And so that's, I think, the same kind of concept with the feminine. Like the feminine, if you kind of relate to the feminine in this way, like mothers are so strong and they are so powerful and able to hold so much to a
Hmm.
degree, you know?
Hmm.
Um, so the best thing we can do is to not take that for granted and to protect and, really help them feel comfortable and provide healing spaces. And so I think there's this parallel between the feminine and water,
Big time.
where we have this great responsibility to something that we can't quite understand, but you know, the striving to help it heal is really like that's been my work is to in both instances is to always strive to be not to say like to be a better man, that saying that I'm a bad man or anything like that, or in a way that's like, you know, putting myself down, but like always striving to be better, you know?
Better than the previous version of yourself, right? Like yesterday's version.
Yeah, and we're inheriting a whole lot from this culture that has not served us.
Big time.
And so, like it is a great, beautiful responsibility to try to be better.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's all these patterns that we inherit from society, from our parents, from our family in general, and it's our responsibility to clear and remove those, like be the ones that with the awareness to stop the cycles. Um,
Hmm.
and going back to the topic of water and the feminine, water is that flow, right? Like it can be so powerful where it carves into rock and makes these profound canyons, right? Like the Grand Canyon was carved with water, which is one of the, most beautiful places on the planet. And then you also have that feminine flow of the water. And then, you know, a lot of cultures correlate fire with being the masculine, and how um, something that I something that I thought of the other day was like, um, you have fire and water, and typically you think about water putting out fire, right? But then fire can also warm up and make water boil. So it can give the same effect just opposite, right? And then it can evaporate it and remove it. So um, yeah, it's a really interesting yin yang of the world, you know. Um,
Hmm.
and while we're on the topic of water, I don't remember where I heard this, but I think it was a quote or a description I should say where it was describing God and it was describing the divine and it was saying how it's all around us, it's in us, it's part of us. We need it to survive, like all these things. And then it was like, what if water actually is holding or is an essence of God, which it is, but to a deeper level where it's like we are drinking this water and it's keeping the essence of God inside this vessel, inside of our body. And that was fascinating to think about for me because I think a human can only go around 7 days without water. And so and I have felt profound differences in like drinking water from Mount Shasta coming out of the mountain out of a spring versus like tap water being the other extreme of it, right? Where the tap water has different chemicals in it and has been um, and is carrying all sorts of different aspects that need to be filtered out, you know. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, water is such a it's the essence of life, you know, and in the Nipi in the sweat lodge, we pray over the water, and when we pray over the water, it becomes medicine, and then we pour the medicine onto the hot red stones to turn it into steam, which brings our prayers up to Creator. And you mentioned church and how diving is your church. And for me, that connection with the water and the fire and the stones, bringing that masculine and feminine together to bring the prayers up is one of my favorite ways to pray.
Mm, yeah. I love how you're bringing it all together. And it also reminded me of the concept again of these waters that are flowing from rivers
Hmm.
like Mount Shasta, you
Hmm.
know? Like that beautiful water that the earth provides is probably the healthiest for our bodies and it's the most harmonious. And yeah, like taking certain steps uh to change the way that tap water is dispersed is helpful
Hmm.
for for individuals in the human realm.
Hmm.
And even if, we're able to like fix a lot of those things in our the way that we consume and that food is regulated for us, that's good for the individuals and for the humans. But to recognize that water and food is supposed to come straight from the earth.
Right.
And in order for that to happen, the earth is supposed to be healthy, functioning. Like my dad called me the other day, like, want to say bless his heart, he was like angry that about the dams. He was like, I wish they had dammed more water to deal with the fires.
Mm.
And I was like, yeah. One of my friend's homes was literally saved because there was a river flowing,
Mm.
and it cut
Hmm.
off the flames from burning his house down.
Right.
Like the Earth knows what it's doing.
Right.
We're the ones that kind of don't know what we're doing.
Right. Right.
Um,
A lot of,
yeah.
a lot of us are just kind of still figuring it out, and the big question is like, why are we here, right? Like, what is our purpose? And every individual has a different journey with that. And yeah, I think, I live by I think the biggest dam in the country, right? Over here by Las Vegas, to create Lake Mead. Um, and I, I there's a road going over the top of it, and it just it kind of breaks my heart to see how I think about imagining how the rivers used to flow through this area, through Nevada, through Arizona, Utah, and how that dam actually shifted so much of the ecosystem and the native animals that just can't survive now because the rivers weren't flowing to those areas anymore, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true that we've dug ourselves in, like we have to start where we're at. Like there are people that are relying on these structures right now, but
Hmm.
I think the important thing to focus on is like there are certain things that physically need to happen. Like we literally quite in physical science, like we need to draw down carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere, or else it's just not possible to continue to like live on this earth
Hmm.
as humans. And then so there are urgent timelines. The last thing we need to be doing is digging ourselves in deeper
Right,
by like puncturing more holes in the earth that are going to leak methane forever to pull
right.
out oil right now. And like those are the kinds of things that I try to focus on. Like one of the big reasons I'm focused on offshore drilling is because there are direct impacts to oil spills. Um, and then there's also like this urgent need to reduce fossil fuel emissions,
Hmm.
while oil companies are designed to continue to expand and expand and expand. Um, and so we absolutely need to put, draw a line in the sand and say like, no more of this, because the current levels of production are astronomical and they're way too much. Um,
Yeah, and I think we
so
are we are moving in that direction with so many more electric cars and which is a whole nother topic, right, with the batteries and stuff like that. But in terms of puncturing the earth in we're just puncturing it in other ways to create batteries, right? But I think there's a lot of people tapping back into these Nikolai Tesla technologies where we were using free energy from the earth, and a lot of civilizations before us were so tapped into that, you know? And I think we we as a society need to start like removing the idea of this greed and profit and actually transitioning into these harmonious ways to live with the planet and use the planet has infinite. I've seen videos of people just taking a couple of magnets and being able to wire some things together and being able to light a light bulb, and it never needs to be plugged in. It's just constantly running. And these technologies are available. There's even kids in Africa creating energy from urine, and these cars that run on water and hydrogen, and there is definitely a lot of movement in that direction on the planet, you know?
yeah, and there are really powerful forces at work to prevent us from moving that direction too. And that's one of the I think one of the most frustrating things for me as somebody who knows about these things is like that the fossil fuel industry has made billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they are committed to deceiving and confusing the public about the solutions to the problem that they've created so that they don't have to clean it up,
Right.
and that they don't have to move out of their current business model. Um, Fossil fuels are more profitable than renewable energies, being that they can be extracted and sold uh,
Right.
renewable energy is more cheap for people. So
Right.
like if people can install solar on their house, it's not going to make somebody else money. It's going to make them money.
Right.
And that's the thing that fossil fuel companies do not want to have happen. And they also don't want to have to clean up like their oil wells that they've drilled offshore that are incredibly difficult to plug. They're actually impossible to plug. They can't be permanently plugged. They can be plugged for about 100 years, and then they have to come back and refill and keep plugging. And if the companies had to do that, they would basically have to answer for these problems forever.
Hmm. Hmm.
They're just
What are
trying to
they
avoid that possibility.
what are they using to plug it?
Oh, there's trash, cement. Sometimes, I mean, now they've started to use cement. In the past, they've used like telephone poles and just different random trash
Hmm.
to try to plug the holes. But yeah, there are experts on plugging and abandonment that will tell you that it's not actually possible to plug an oil well.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of like when you compare what's needed to mine, I'm not saying that it's like ethical to mine lithium or cobalt or the other things that are needed to create renewables. But I am saying that it's a much longer both time scale and a much heavier impact by like, times 1,000, maybe it's hard to compare side by side, but
Hmm.
um, this methane that's leaking from these wells
Hmm.
is probably one of the worst like impacts to our global climate that exists. Just old leaky wells.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, I it makes me think about driving through Texas one time. I think I drove from Austin out to New Mexico, and it was like 9 hours. The state is massive for people that haven't driven through it. Texas is huge, and the whole 9 hours, it was all these fossil fuel rigs for mining oil, and everywhere. I mean,
Yeah.
it was wild. And I remember I remember having this vision. I think it was on a plant medicine journey where, you know, I believe everything is fractal, right? Like you were saying, the cell and then the organs in the cell. We have this body, we have organs in in our body, the earth and its flow, like if the oil is the blood of the earth, right? And then it made me think about this, like let's say you get a mosquito bite on your arm, right? This was how my mind was making the connection. Let's say you get a mosquito bite on your arm and it just takes a little bit of your blood. Uh, you might have a little bump there, unless you're allergic. You'll have a little bump there and then it'll heal, right? But then if you cut an artery on your neck, uh, there's a lot more blood that's going to come out of there. And if the mosquito were to tap into there, it would be easier to retrieve a lot of blood from there, and it's like a much bigger vessel versus like these tiny capillaries we have along the top of the arms, right? Versus like your carotid artery and things like that, right? Like those are major highways for blood. And so the vision I had was that, in these places like uh Saudi Arabia, Iran, where you have these major. It feels like those are some of the major arteries of the planet for oil, and so uh, those arteries of the planet are like producing the most. And but then when we're doing it in these other places, like we're just like puncturing, like you were saying, these holes, and it it's like almost like does it make sense what I'm sharing? Like
Yeah.
yeah, it's like different parts of the planet have different levels of flow, and also, um, yeah, I think we just have to completely shift away from it at very soon, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's actually makes me think of a project that several projects are being proposed right now in the Gulf of Mexico that are called 20K projects, and they are deeper, typically in deeper water.
Hmm.
They are intended, there are equipment that theoretically is designed to drill up to 20,000 psi of oil pressure, which hasn't been done before anywhere around the world, as far as I know, except for in the Gulf of Mexico. So Chevron, BP, and several other companies are seeking permits right now to drill for oil in higher pressure than has ever been drilled before. And these are companies that, like BP, has had a major disaster already in the Gulf. And at that time, it's believed that they may have wiped out about half of the population of another critically endangered whale that only exists in the Gulf of Mexico.
Oh wow.
And now they're applying for a permit to drill even deeper in higher pressures. And this is, to put it in perspective, 20,000 psi is if you took a postage stamp and put it on the ground and then stacked two double-decker buses sitting on that one postage stamp. That's the
Oh
amount of
wow.
pressure that we're talking about. So
Wow.
the it's like that artery, like we don't yet know what to expect.
Hmm.
So these are the kinds of projects that I'm keeping my eye on and trying to make sure that we don't end up drilling into these extra deep, high pressure pockets of oil and gas.
Yeah, and as you were talking, it made me think about, in the early 1900s and 1800s, they were using whale blubber for candles and for all these kind of things. Like there was mass onslaught of these innocent, majestic creatures, And I mean, we've come a long way since then, and I need to do some more research, but I'm really curious, like when it transitioned into somebody being like, okay, let's take the oil from the earth. Um, do you know anything about that history?
Yeah, I can't recall it specifically, but I do remember hearing some anecdotes about how people were advocating for oil drilling as a basically an eco-friendly solution because it meant that we wouldn't need to kill whales anymore more for
Right,
oil.
right.
Um, which is so interesting because, now we've reached the next, I think it's indicative of the problem, right? Which is that we can create these tech solutions that probably at some point in the future will end up backfiring if we just think, oh, we can continue to consume more and more,
Hmm.
and we can continue to reproduce as humans at the same rate that we've been, which is a very controversial topic, but I don't want to just exclude it from the equation because it's
Hmm.
literally part of the equation, that humans are expanding at it, there's more humans than ever on this planet. And so each of those, we have an amount of consumption. And I think as long as those core um, issues aren't addressed and we continue to rely on tech fixes, that at some point they will backfire. Just like, the use of fossil fuels is the largest one that we're reaping the devastation of right now.
Yeah, and it feels like a cycle, right? Like where we stopped killing the whales, but now these oil spills are killing the whales again, you know? And
Yeah.
it's like the whales and the dolphins are, from my understanding, the um m- highest vibrational beings on the planet. So they're extremely advanced, and they have a language. They're just, yeah, they're extremely advanced, and they're extremely intelligent, And I think, you know, what I'm noticing is like people are dissociating from themselves and from their feelings and from that feminine side that we were talking about. And because of that, they're dissociating with their connection with the mother, which is the planet. And that, is part of my purpose and my mission is to help people reconnect with themselves, to reconnect with their traumas, not to continuously numb out with all these different ways that we've created to numb out in society, right? And it makes me think about this video I saw the other day, and it was this older grandpa, and he's saying how, people are not living anymore. They're not going outside and experiencing. They're inside on the TV with these computer games and these realities that are just in their house, where they're not like reaping and like fully getting the experience of life. And it really resonated with me because, you know, all these video games and movies and things are doing for a lot of people is just I can go back to a time when I was doing the same thing, right? Like where I was just playing video games when I was in college and watching movies so that I wouldn't have to deal with my problems, you know?
Uh,
And, you know, there's a lot of problems, but not dealing with them creates more from my
yeah.
experience.
Oh my gosh. I'm feeling called to share now a recommendation that one of my professors in college gave me, and this is to anyone, is go live outside for a while. Like get a
Mm,
hammock and set it up in some woods somewhere.
hmm.
And I lived in the woods for 7 months of my life at one point, which is a whole different story.
Wow.
But I ended up, sleeping outside every night for 7 months, and I became like the spiders. There was like a spider that set up shop right next to me and was just like had this beautiful nest, and the crows would come around once a month and like do this thing, bird songs and everything, and it was just like, oh my gosh, this is actually like part of my community is here.
Yeah. Yeah, that's amazing, man. Where did you do that?
In North Carolina and East Texas. So those are the two places that I split those 7 months.
Wow. So what were you doing for food?
I worked at a co-op, and I would take the food that we were like getting rid of,
Hmm.
that didn't look good enough, or it was like slightly sprouted or something.
Hmm.
I'd bike around with that food in a backpack, show up at my friends' houses and cook for them, and then I could eat food and use their stove. So there was this like other part of it that kind of forced me into developing reciprocity with people.
Hmm.
And also, like the cool thing about that was I got to be a consumer of what would have been food waste.
Right.
And I
Right.
think there's an opportunity for, we talked about this a little bit, right? With the houseless, unhoused population. Like there are these opportunities to like reimagine the value of unhoused people. Like they might choose to stay that way if they're not given a better alternative. And like there's so many things we can do if
Yeah.
we just think a little, slow down and think about things a little differently.
Yeah, man. And there's so many ways to do things in a very cost-effective way
Mhm.
where, you can use the earth to build homes. Like there's something for people that haven't heard of it called earth ships, where you
Mhm.
actually take bags, fill them up with dirt, and then make these dome-like structures, and you can connect them and make whole communities with these beautiful. structures, and all you're really paying for is the bags, and it's really the way that I want to live in the future. And my big vision is, I think I've shared with you, is to raise money and bring people together to create this conscious community where we can be fully on the land, be living inside of it, like inside of a fully self-sustainable community where we're growing our own crops. Everything is, like you said, from the earth to the plate, and there's no waste. And I've lived in a community like this in Costa Rica, where the trash pickup came 3 times a year. And it was this ashram, and they had 4,000 fruit trees. They had um, two greenhouses and one herbal garden. And they were able to have every meal be 70% from their land. So that was really powerful to see that these things are possible, because I think people believe that these things aren't possible, and maybe in some places of the planet it's not. In the extreme
Mhm.
cold and the extreme heat, it's not really feasible. But there is a lot that you can do, even in those spaces. You can build greenhouses, you can, collect rainwater. There's just so many things to that can work. So yeah, there's this movement of people wanting to reconnect to the planet, reconnect to themselves. And I think there's a direct connection with that, of like, when we connect with ourselves internally, like what you mentioned with the diving and with meditation and those kind of things, when we reconnect with self, we reconnect with the planet, and with compassion and with love and caring for others, and being able to, from that place, navigate and volunteer and and work with organizations, and work, even just going outside and collecting trash. Like, that's something that every person can do. And I when I lived in San Diego, I would do at least once a week, go down to the ocean and just collect trash. And to me, it wasn't about sharing or boasting about it. It was, every time I cleaned something up, the earth would actually gift me with something that I was actually looking for. So I'd find coins, I would find watches washed up. It was a beautiful practice, actually, of learning to connect with spirit and with the earth, and to learn how to fully manifest. And I remember I would ask for like a new pair of sunglasses, and they'd just wash up. Or I'd need a trash can, and this trash can would just wash up, like, it was really amazing, because the planet is alive, and there is a way to connect to it and communicate with it, for those that are wondering.
Wow. Yeah, and I'm sure the dolphins didn't need that trash can.
Right, right.
Like we don't need this. This is only going to bring us trouble. But yeah, that's beautiful. It's a beautiful act of care. And I think that's like one of the most important parts is to get in the experience of acting from a place of love and care and caring for the planet. Like it's just so good for our souls. And yeah, I don't think people have to choose between like fighting corporations and changing your lifestyle. I do think that corporations want us to think that the only thing we can do is change our lifestyle. That's a very well-known, advocacy strategy from the fossil fuel companies and the plastic companies. But I think it's important to do the things that bring you joy and also to know that we don't have to choose between challenging systems of power and also living in a good way. And that both of them are necessary, that we're going to need to have people doing both of those things to realize the kind of world that I think we're all envisioning together.
Yeah, yeah, big time. Yeah, man. Um, And so I'm just curious with the free diving, did
Mhm.
you ever like free swim with whales and dolphins in the ocean?
Most of my experiences have been with sea lions.
Oh
Um,
wow. Okay.
in- oh yeah. So it's funny because there's a super playful relationship where I'm out in the middle of the ocean diving on a line that's like, you know, I'm doing, say, a warm-up dive at 20 meters, like a 60, 70 meter or 70-foot dive.
Hmm.
And I go down and I just hang and I'm relaxing. And all of a sudden I feel this, like the water moves over my body really fast.
Whoa.
And I realized that that was a sea lion dive bombing me. It was going and it turned away and it just kind of, you know, bathed me in water. Um,
Wow.
they'll come in too and dive at my face and they'll go "Bah," and then they turn away and they blow bubbles. And I can't
Oh
tell if
man.
it's aggressive or playful or both. But yeah, that's been most of my experience. And then I've seen like many species of sharks. I've come very close to dolphins. At one point, one of them jumped over my float.
Oh wow.
We were diving, but I haven't really lucked out with whales very much. I haven't seen very many whales.
And that you have a deep connection with the orcas, right?
Mhm.
Another name you go by is Brady Orca. So can you talk a little bit about that? Like where did
Yeah,
that connection
that
originate?
would take us back to the beginning of this conversation a little bit about the SeaWorld thing,
Hmm.
because at that time in my life, I was very disillusioned. I
Hmm.
was like just incredibly disappointed. I was like, and there was a doll or an orca, which are dolphins, by the way. They're another type of dolphin.
Hmm.
Even though we call them killer whales. There was an orca at SeaWorld named Tilikum
Hmm.
who taken, who had basically taken two, maybe killed one dolphin trainer and another one like basically pushed them to the brink of death. Could have eaten them instantly if they wanted to, but I think was trying to prove a point that like this is not a friendly relationship.
Hmm.
And so I was really kind of struck by that, and it kind of became at that point became my spiritual animal because I had this my spirit animal because I had this like rage for that particular orca and all the orcas that were experiencing captivity like that. But over the years, they've just fascinated me. Like their biology, there's several populations of endangered orcas. One of the ones that I'm working on right now is one that only lives in Oregon, Washington, and a little bit California. Its range sometimes goes all the way down to Monterey Bay, but there's only 73 of them left.
Oh wow.
That's really bad. That's really bad news for them. They're starving. They don't have enough salmon to eat. Often when they have babies, their babies starve and die. And so, it's like I think of orcas as like this sentinel of the ocean. They help regulate ecosystems. They're super important for the ecosystem, and they also kind of like scare people a little bit.
Hmm.
And I think we need to all confront our fears. So there's all sorts of themes.
Hmm.
They're colored like the yin and the yang,
Right.
and they're incredibly beautiful and soft and sweet, and they also can be fierce.
Hmm.
And I just like, yeah, my fascination with the orcas is endless.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see all those qualities of the orca, and yeah, they're fascinating creatures, man. They're highly intelligent, and what's been happening recently is that they've been showing up around San Diego, which hasn't really been a thing for like when my girlfriend grew up there, and she said they never saw orcas off the shore, but now in the last couple of years they've been migrating down there. Is that because of looking for more food?
Most likely, this orcas that people are seeing in San Diego are called transient orcas, and they travel the entire coast.
Okay.
And the resident orcas wouldn't be found. I would be very surprised if they found resident orcas. However, someone did spot a beluga whale off of San Diego's coast a
Really?
few, which is extremely weird. Like they only inhabit Alaskan waters and
Right.
Arctic. So, there are some strange things happening in the ocean, and I unfortunately often think that it's due to animals having to resort to extreme measures to survive. Um, but yeah, hopefully there are ways that it will also adapt.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
one of my life dreams is to go to some of these remote places and uh be near the whales when they're with their young, like see them, not necessarily like be in the water with them, but like see what their life is like. When I was younger, we would always go up to Maine and we would go whale watching. So I've seen many different whales. Um, and they're just they're so huge and massive and beautiful. And one thing I learned about them was that they sleep. They call it, I think it's called logging, right? When they sleep, they like sometimes like are upright, like vertical, and they just kind of like float on the top of the water, and then they'll just come up a little bit to breathe. And I believe that the way they sleep is like half of their brain goes to sleep and then the other half sleeps. It's really fascinating.
Yeah, there are different methods that dolphins and whales use, but I think most of them do have to do with sort of isolating parts of the brain. Yeah, and there's so many lessons that we have to learn. Like, how many people know that about that animal? Um,
Yeah.
it's there's so many things that the natural world can teach us about. Not that we would just be able to do it, but maybe there are things we can learn about meditation, through knowing more about that.
Well, I don't know if this is true, but I heard that they were almost maybe in like a year they'll be completed with a way to communicate with dolphins.
Mm.
Like they're translating their language, and there's going to be a way to understand what they're saying and actually communicate back with them, which I think is going to be profound. I think, yeah, that's going to be next level.
Yeah. You know, of course, uh, am excited. I've always wanted for that to happen. Like, that's like, yes, I want that to happen. I also like really want to make sure like we have the right representatives going and doing it. Like,
Yes. I'm
it would
I'm
be
voting for
sad.
you. I'm voting for you to be the representative.
Yeah, I do think the first, like, if we're able to establish that, the first thing we need to do is like just listen,
Right. Like what do
find
they
out
have
what
to
they're.
say? Like what are they gonna like I can't even imagine the things that they can teach us and share with us, and because they are so highly intellectual.
Yeah. If it were me, I'd be like, okay, look, here's the things that we know we've done wrong. I
Right.
mean, if you were wondered why the salmon is gone, that's us. And I'm sorry. And what? Now I'm here to listen.
Right.
Hope
Right.
we can get on a good path from there.
Yeah, and I think it'll really change the way people perceive dolphins and whales. If we're able to actually communicate with them, it's like basically communicating with an extraterrestrial. It's like
Absolutely.
it's just going to change so much. So, I'm looking
The
forward to
orcas
that day. What was that?
they're like, that orcas have cultures. Like they have very complex culture, and even like the same species, they have different dialects and everything. So
Just
yeah,
like
it's
just like in
exciting.
America or any other country, right? Like In the South, people have a different accent than in the North, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
East and the West. I mean, it's with internet now, it's kind of getting different, but without internet, before internet, it was very, very distinct, if you will,
Right.
different accents. Yeah.
And orcas like maintain their cultures, and some scientists wonder still why do they still maintain that culture even if it's not, benefiting their survivability? And I think they could tell us why.
Yeah. 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 That'd be super, super interesting. I'm looking forward to that for sure, man. Um, well, Brady, it's been such an honor to have you on today. Thank you so much for joining the Spiritual Teachers Podcast. And I think we could talk for many more hours. So potentially we can do a part two at some point.
I would love it, and it's been great connecting with you too. Thanks for instigating all these great kind of discussions.
Absolutely, man. Until next time, brother. Sending you lots of love.
You
Take care.
too.
Take care.